All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fallen Flags of America. Today we will be covering short lines as well as railroads in Kentucky in both the past and present. So we start off this episode with the picture analyzation or the picture of the day. Today we have L&M 154, which is a Alco RS3. It's one of the early phases of RS3, and it is pulling the HK turn in Frankfort, Kentucky. Went back in, I believe this was August 25th of 1970 is when this was taken. So Frankfort was a lot different back then. Yeah, so that credit to that photo goes to Dennis Mays. This is another photo from the Mays collection. So here is another RS3 number 162, which was shot here in January of 1969 at the West Yards in Lexington. And that is the same yard that is now the R.J. Corman Central Lines yard. Well, it used to be called Central Lines, then it was called Kentucky Lines, and it's been under a few names through the years. Whoops, and where did I put that last photo? Hang on. Let me see where I put that, guys. Just hold it. Bear with me one moment. Okay, well, I guess it's not. And oh, here it is. Here's the other two. Here's another Alco number 137. This is also assigned to some of the Winchester, well, they technically call them EK locals, but they ran between Lexington and Winchester. And this one, according to Mr. Mays, actually was the last RS3 the L&N in operation, retired in 1975, which was after 2 decades of service. Because most of them were built in, I think, the mid 50s, and they survived anywhere on the L&M. They survived anywhere from the early. Oh crap! They survived anywhere on the L&M from the mid 60s to mid 70s. And this photo here is also in West Yards. This is number 48, which is an Alco RS1M, which that was built in 1945, but L&M began a rebuilding program in the mid 60s, I think, and they kept those in service, I think, until the early 70s, I think, is when those were retired. So they didn't really last that long, the L&M, but all the same, they were nice locomotives. What else have we got here? So we've covered the L&N, which was one of the big class ones that was in Kentucky. Another railroad that was in Kentucky that a lot of people don't know about. Credit to this photo here goes to Adam Wells, as you can see down here. This is a quartet of Fairbanks Morse. Such I believe these are H16 44s. These were off the Kentucky and Indiana Terminal Railroad, and that railroad stayed around until sometime the mid 70s when it was purchased by the Southern Railway, which became Norfolk Southern. So that was a railroad that had trackage. Mainly, they were just an industrial. They were Class 3 industrial in Louisville. They had connections with the Southern and I believe maybe the L&N. I could be wrong. This was taken in 1960. Oh, okay. Well, so I was partly right. 62, which is this locomotive, and number 60 are H12 44s, and 51 and 55 are H10 44s, which are the 4-axle Fairbanks Morse locomotives. So, yeah. Next up, we have where are my pictures of it on here? I surely have pictures of it. The next railroad we have on here is the Southern Railway. The Southern Railway actually had a lot of trackage, fun fact, most of which where I'm from. The Southern had a branch line that used to run from Lawrenceburg to Lexington, Kentucky, that was called the Versailles District. And it had a pair of EMD SW1s that were signed to it because this bridge here, which is the Tyrone Trestle, located in Tyrone, Kentucky, in Anderson County, Kentucky, that bridge was built in the 1800s, and by the 50s, from what I understand, it fell into very bad disrepair, and the Southern didn't really think it was necessary to have it rebuilt, so they apparently track conditions on it were so bad they couldn't take anything bigger than SW1s because of the bridges, which was Tyrone and Cedar Brook, which I have pictures of that bridge, and I plan to do maybe a short video on the Cedar Brook Bridge, maybe just to, I don't know, but that's something that you can be looking forward to. That will be coming. So these are also photos these are from Dennis Mays. Here is the same locomotive, number 1007, pictured at Pisgah, Kentucky, which is going. I believe that is going. That technically be going north toward Lexington. This next photo is number 2007, which is the other switcher that was assigned to the Versailles District, or VD. And that I actually had a friend who had a family member who worked on this district and ran on it for many years until he eventually retired. So yeah, it was just a very organized line. Would have been a really nice line. Here's a good picture of 2007 when it was over in. This was in downtown Versailles, and this is now, I think, where I want to say this is now. I believe that is at what is presently what is the name of that? Alltech. Alltech. It's just a feed mill that Corman serves, but there used to be a paper plant for sales back then, apparently. So I don't know. That's a picture of a famous Saluda grave, which we all know what Saluda is. Southern was one of the cool railways, I think, personally, but that's just me. The next railroad that ran in Kentucky, and I say ran because they had trackage in the very western part of the state, and this was the Illinois Central Railroad. Well, here's a picture from Centralia, Illinois. The credit goes to Mary Ray McPherson, I think is how you say that name. And in the mix, you can see here a GM&O number 908 and SD40, which was the only SD40 on the GM&O before the ICG merger in the 70s, but that only lasted till I think the late 80s, I think, and then apparently GM&O pulled out of the merger, which I did not know railroads can do that after they merge, but apparently they can. So yeah. But yeah, we've got, I think that's a trio of SD4. Well, actually, I take that back. The first two are SD40s, and then the trailing unit. Well, the trailing unit is a Jeep, probably a probably a GP38 or a GP40. I'm gonna guess, probably 38. But the lead unit is an SD40A, which is a heavily customized SD40 that was exclusively ordered by the Illinois Central. Well, actually, I take that back. The only other railroad to order those was the Burlington Northern, but that was about it. they were a mix between the SD40X and an SD40. So on what they looked like, they were quite interesting looking. So here they are in what I called the pumpkin paint scheme, and I have this picture. Oh crap! Well, I seem to forgot that there, but um, the Illinois Central, its main line ran through Kentucky at a place called Fulton, Kentucky, which is on the very western part of the state. That is now Canadian National, because Illinois Central was bought out by the CN in 99, I believe, or it was 99, 98, somewhere in there. Um, and that is still CN trackage. I believe Amtrak has a train that stops there. I can't remember what it is, but I do know it has a station there. So I would assume a train stops there. I would guess it might be. I'm going to guess it might be not the Crescent, but the South Wind. If that well, not the South Wind, maybe it's City of New Orleans. I don't know if Amtrak still runs that train or not. So yeah. So that's all the class ones for you we've got here. Wait. I'm wrong. There's one class one I forgot. I don't know how could forget this class one. Where are my pictures of it on here? Oh, the next railroad that we are going to talk about is the Chesapeake and Ohio, which had trackage in Kentucky. The Chesapeake and Ohio actually had trackage from Ashland, Kentucky to Lexington, Kentucky. That's a Dennis Mays picture. This credit goes to John C. Durant and then Gary Everhart. That is a picture of 2716 when she was in service with the CNO. This is in the early 50s. This is in 51 when this was taken in Cincinnati. I don't know how long she stayed in service on the CNO, but I do know that she was active on it for a while. But first picture here, this is a duo of SD40s leading the local across the L&N CNO Diamond at Winchester. And I believe this was June 30th, 1972, apparently. The next picture is a GP7, a quite worn out looking GP7, number 5860. Leads a MAO train through Ashland, Kentucky. This was taken in July 29th, 1981. So this was short. This was right before. This was right at the end of the Ashland district. That's what they called it, and it connected with the main line. I think in western, very close to the Kentucky line, and West Virginia is where it connected to the main line. So yeah, the George Washington actually had a section that ran to Lexington, but that service ended, I think, in the early 60s. Well, no, I take that back. That would be in the mid 60s. That's when the last service of it ran through. So yeah. Here, excuse me, guys. Here's the 2716, and probably idling in Cincinnati. This would have been on April 17th, 1951. So yeah, that's your class ones. Well, no, there's a fourth one I forgot. That it had trackage it had a very small portion of trackage in Kentucky, and it was mainly in Louisville. We cannot forget the Monon, which was the Hoosier line of. It was the Railroad of Indiana, and so my friend, the country rail fan, really likes the Monon. It is his favorite railroad to ever exist, and I actually don't blame him, because the Monon was quite a unique railroad. I mean, they used semaphore signals that were probably built in the 30s or 40s all the way up into the 70s when they merged with L&N. I mean, they used those things until the Monon was dead, and then uh, actually the semaphores stayed in service all the way up until it was abandoned after the Indiana Railroad quit running trains on it when CSX still owned it because of poor trackage conditions. Because it was kind of funny. The Monon actually had an interesting life. After it was merged with L&N 71, they ran trains on it and kept most of it in active service after the merger, although there are parts of it that were abandoned. Um, they kept, oh, I'm trying to remember here. They kept the, what was that? They kept they kept all the mainline service. By the time it got to CSX years, the Monon had pretty much been, it still saw a lot of traffic, but the Monon's traffic started decreasing after 1999, which was the same year Conrail fell and was merged with NS and CSX. And the Monon was actually a good route to Chicago for CSX, but when they got Conrail, that became obsolete very quickly because on Conrail they could just go directly from they could take the they could go directly off Conrail. Like if you had a train coming from New York and was going to Chicago, they could just go west through Pennsylvania and go directly that way over the former I believe that was Pennsylvania Railroad or New York Central. They both had trackage to Chicago and in Chicago. So, yeah, they had trackage in those places. The Monon actually had CSX trains running on it till around 2009. Um, and then in 2000 to two, it was I think it only lasted until maybe 2011. I want to say because but for a brief time the Indiana Railroad ran trains over it. They ran trains between what was it? I think Bloomington to Indianapolis. I don't really know exactly because I'm not in trackage that I'm familiar with, but they ran trains on it for a short time, and then CSX basically said, "Well, we're not going to run trains over it anymore because well, BINRD came to CSX and was like, we're not going to run trains over it anymore because the trackage is so bad on it, and you guys won't pay for the upgrade, so we're just going to quit running trains over it." And that's exactly what they did. What they utilize, I think, is the former, or no, that's not it. But yeah, so the Monon after 2011 was abandoned. It's been abandoned since. I was recently out on the Monon in December of last year with my friend, the Country Rail Fan, and we went up to Campbellsburg, Indiana, and we photographed the last remaining intact semaphore signals. And I have pictures of that on my computer. So yeah, that was a really neat trip. We all and on a separate weekend. This was also in December. We went up to Orleans, Indiana, to photograph an abandoned L&M 40-foot boxcar. Which, if there's any museums out there that are looking to get some more rolling stock or would like to preserve some rolling stock, I know there's several museums throughout. Probably there might be some in Illinois, maybe some in Indiana, some in Ohio, some even my home state of Kentucky. But it'd just be nice if someone preserved that thing because I believe it's the last remaining 40-foot boxcar that is still in L&M paint. It's still in L&M blue, and I have picture evidence of that. And I'll go take a look at that real quick since I brought it up. But let's see here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to We're gonna go here. Go down. All right, so here it is at Orleans, Indiana. We photographed this thing, and I was amazed to see it here. You can see that there used to be it looked like a very small yard here at Orleans. Still got the L&N logo. It's got some graffiti on it. It's seaboard patched. I was foaming over this quite a bit that day, understandably, because you do not see these anymore. They're really rare. Um, I would say it was probably used as like a maintenance boxcar or something, and I guess it was abandoned after CSX's. They didn't really need it, so it was just left there. And here's some pictures at the Monon Museum in Orleans, Indiana. Here's an old wooden caboose that they had on display, which was really nice looking. Um, then here's some stuff the Madison Railroad, but I'm getting a little bit off topic here, so we will go back to locomotive pictures. Just so yeah, that's really the class ones that ran in Kentucky. I don't believe there's any others that I know of. Presently, the Southern became Norfolk Southern, and it still has trackage in Kentucky with both the Louisville District, which is my home line, and then the CNO&TP, which is in a way my home line. It's not like the line that I rail fam like every day, but I do get out on it sometimes and rail fam. Recently, when I was out on it, we caught the Southern Heritage Unit 8099, which here's a picture here of the Southern when it was on display at Steam at Spencer in 2011, I believe. So it was prettied up. It was beautied up a bit for this event. It was paired with a SC70 ACU, which is the 90 Mac rebuild, and those things are beautiful. I really like the 90. I really like not the 90 Max. I really like the 70 ACUs just because I think they're an attractive looking locomotive, and they're also the last. I believe they're technically the last Max on Norfolk Southern after they sold the 80 Max last year, which, excuse me, a lot of people were bummed about, including myself. I was very sad about that. And here we can see a former Southern GP38-2, now in Corman paint, still with its Southern number boards, working the local in Versailles, which I don't know what the local is, nor how often it runs. If anyone knows when the Corman Versailles local runs, drop it down in the comments below. Any information would be much appreciated on that. But that's really the class ones we've covered Kentucky. Now we can get to the class twos. So we have several class twos in Kentucky. We'll start out with the R.J. Corman Kentucky lines, which R.J. Corman Kentucky lines that utilizes the former the Louisville and Nashville what was referred to as the Old Road branch, which was a connection line used by the L&N between Lexington and Louisville. So you'd have trains that would go from like Louisville to Cincinnati or Louisville to Lexington. They'd just use a lot of stuff. So Corman, they even had a steam locomotive for a little while. Like Corman operated a steam engine. It's a Chinese QJ class 210 steam engine, I believe, number 209, which was 2008, and it was nicknamed Old Smoky by Corman and just local rail fans that knew about it, like myself, and it was just really neat to see it because it was the last operating steam engine. I remember when I was just a little kid, me and my granddad went over to Baghdad, Kentucky, because we received word that it was going to be running the sand train to Louisville that day, and sure enough, it ran the train from it ran the train from Lexington to Louisville. Then going back, it was a deadhead. It had two Corman diesels behind it. That were on the back. I don't remember what they were, but it was just really cool to see it because it was just steaming the bluegrass again, and it was something that we haven't seen in years in Kentucky. It was really nice for rail fans because when Mr. Corman was still alive, the founder of the company, Rick Corman, um, when he was still alive, he made sure this thing was running. Like he would not let this thing just sit around in a yard and rust. But it was actually built in 1985, apparently, and was purchased by Corman in 2008, I believe, and it was then shipped over here from China, um, and it's been used by Corman, um, or it was used by Corman. The last run I believe it had was in I want to say it was in 2010, I believe, is when that was the last time it ran, but I could be wrong. Um, but after Mr. Corman passed away several years ago, the locomotive hasn't seen any running since. And it there was rumors it was actually going to be scrapped, which was very sad. I was like, oh no, it's going to get scrapped, and oh, well, it's actually a 210-4, which is still a Texan, but when you see this thing up close, it is a huge locomotive. But like I was saying in Baghdad before I got a little bit distracted, is that it's a 210 too. I was right. It stopped in Baghdad because they had to refill the tender on it because it was low on water. So the fire department came out and they were filling up the locomotive, and it was just so cool to witness. It was really, really incredible just seeing it as a kid. I will never forget that. That's a memory that is always going to be special to me, and it's just really neat. So, uh, thankfully, though, I've been keeping track of Old Smoky ever since I put her in storage, and I found out that in 2000, I believe it was last year in 2020, the Kentucky Steam Heritage Corporation in Ravenna, Kentucky, which is I'll talk about them a little bit because they've done a lot of stuff. They have some great stuff cooking down there in Ravenna, and I'll leave an invite if you'd like to join them. I'll leave a link to their website on how you can go about joining um, the KYHHC, or KYHHSC, I think is the correct abbreviation. They actually announced they were going to purchase Old Smoky off Corman, and they were going to preserve her down in Ravenna, which was very good for a lot of rail fans. But unfortunately, I don't. It's not been confirmed that they bought the unit yet, but it's still sitting in Lexington. And not too awfully long ago, I went up there to see her just to make sure she was still all right, and she's still there. They they haven't touched her yet. They put her in the siding, and she's just been left there. So in a way, that's good, but it's also sad because you just see when you see how big this thing is in person, it's just really amazing. It's huge in person, and it's just like it's living and breathing when you're just hearing the steam churn from the cylinders, and you're just hearing it kind of like a little tapping noise where it's tapping into the pistons, and You can see the smoke coming out of it. You can hear a whistle, and it's just amazing. I need to get out sometime and rail fan the Iowa Interstate because from my understanding, they have a pair of QJ class, and one of them, I don't know if it still does, but it did have an Illinois Central 3 chime, well, 5 chime on it, which was a really nice whistle. I don't know if they still run it or not, but that'd be nice to get out and see that. Uh, so yeah, Corman has trackage from Lexington to Louisville. That I know of, only one train utilizes the line, and that is the sand train, which I can't remember what identification it runs under. Um, they also have the aluminum train, which runs between Berea, Kentucky, and Lexington. It leads Berea as CSX Z5 86 or something. I can't remember its ID precisely. Um, but it is definitely a Z train. It runs up to Winchester where it gets on the old road there and goes east to Lexington, where I believe it stops for the night. Then they run it on to Louisville the next day. It stops for a crew change in Lexington. Then they take it on to Louisville. So yeah, that interchanges with CSX. The next railroad in Kentucky that we're going to talk about is the Trans-Kentucky Transportation Railroad, also known as TTI. TTI was a railroad that was in Kentucky. They had a small line that I believe was also a former Louisville-Nashville line. It ran between Paris, Kentucky to Maysville, Kentucky, which I believe was only about maybe like 10 miles or less. It wasn't a really big railroad, but for like a class 3, it was a really nice railroad. So like here's a great picture of it. This is it back in this is 2002, July 31st, 2002. So I wasn't even born yet when this was taken. Um, this is by J.E. Landrum, which was a very nice photo. That's a picture of a train coming up, and it's gonna take the TTI back south to Paris. But there's the riverfront right there, and I just think that's a really pretty view there. Um, but like I was saying, TTI for a long time, up until they closed in 2019, was owned by CSX. So, and I was kind of sad about the TTI because I never got to get out and document the TTI because I wanted to get out and document it. I really did, but I never knew when they were running. But they utilized a fleet of originally they were formed in the 90s. They utilized a fleet that was mixed of former U-23Bs. Most of them were from the Burlington Northern, which got them from the CB&Q, the Chicago Burlington Quincy. They have like one or two Rock Island. They had one that was a former PL&E, Pittsburgh and Lake Erie. And then after they retired those sometime in the I believe that was sometime in the 90s. Well, no. That would have been sometime in the early 2000s. They retired those because CSX sent some former Seaboard B36-7s down there, which they still have, and two of those. One of them was in YN1, the other of which was in YN2. And the TTI mainly had two paint schemes: a Wildcat, which was the blue and white paint scheme, And then the other one they had was the Greyhound paint scheme, which was silver and blue, which was a really nice paint scheme, really nice. So, um, yeah, like I said, then the TTI even had a few Alcos, I believe. They have an S1M that they got from the L&N, which I believe was, I don't know exactly who sold it to them. Uh, Thankfully, one of the TTI locomotives got preserved, number 260, which was a former CB&Q U36B. It was painted in a unique paint scheme, as you can see here. But it's a U28B. They had U28Bs, they had U23Bs. I think they had a few U25Bs at some point. So, for instance, here's number 257, which was on the deadline sometime in the early 2000s. Even what is cool about the TTI, I think, is that Rapido recently in 2020, earlier this year, released their B36-7s, and they're covering a few railroads. So I'll leave a link to their website if you want to go order yours today. I believe they're still there. But one of the railroads they were doing was TTI. TTI was one of the locomotives that they were going to buy. Well, oh my gosh, I said that wrong. It was one of them they were doing. So here's a list of all of them they're doing. They're doing Santa Fe. They're doing Comrail, both in NS and CSX patched as well. CSX Y2, Norfolk Southern, Southern, which had the high hood. There was only 6 of these built, so they are very rare. Southern Pacific, Seaboard System, Minnesota Commercial, and BC Rail. Those are the ones they're doing in their first run, and I am super excited for those. And they also come with their own unique details to the model. So, for instance, the Santa Fe will have some details that you wouldn't see on, say, like a TTI-7, or Southern would have some details you wouldn't see on like a TTI or CSX. Like, for instance, the high hood, they were the only Dash 7 variant to be built the high hood, so they're quite interesting. Unfortunately, after the Georgia Central retired those, I believe last year or the year before, because they got some. Hang on, guys. They got a hold of the fleet of former Rock Island GP38-2s. That's what they replaced with. Which I'm not gonna lie, those aren't a bad unit, but they're not the same as like high hoods. They're not as unique in a sense because it's just like they're not. They're just not. There's only 6 of those things built, and it's kind of insulting to say that they're not going to use them anymore. But whatever. However, I did hear from Trail Time Rail Media recently that there are talks that there are investors who are going to buy the TTI off CSX and they're going to try and restore it. So maybe, just maybe, the TTI will be resurrected. Let's see. We covered the TTI. Another railroad I know I've already mentioned this, but was the F&C Railroad, or the Frankfort and Cincinnati Railroad, and that was another short line that ran from Frankfort and Cincinnati. It ran from Frankfort, Kentucky to Google, what are you doing? It ran from Frankfort, Kentucky to Paris, Kentucky, we're at interchange with the L&N and the southern of Georgetown, Kentucky. And I have the book, The Frankfort and Cincinnati Railroad, History and Remembrance of the Bourbon Railroad by Ed Vaster and Jerry Studiff. I highly recommend you buy this book. It is a great, great book. It is a really nice book. If you like the Frankfort and Cincinnati, I suggest you head on over to Amazon and buy your copy today. I'll even leave a link for you so you can go get your own book yourself if you want it. But it was a short line that it had 2 wrecks in the 70s, and the holding company, who by this time had bought them out, basically closed the railroad in the late 70s, and they were history, as they say. Another railroad that we will mention was the Riney B Railroad, which was the Richmond, Nicholasville, Irvin, and oh crap, I can't remember what exactly it stood for, but it was a railroad that ran. It was another short line that ran from Nicholasville to Irvin, Kentucky, and was later extended to Paris. That railroad was abandoned sometime in the 1940s, and all of it was ripped up because at the time they needed the steel for the war effort. But if you go down to the ferry crossing in, I believe it's Fayette and Jessamine counties. I can't remember what lake or river it's on. But if you go down to the ferry crossing, you can still see where the old bridge was, where the TTI curved and went into Jessamine County, which is Nicholasville. So, yeah, another railroad that I forgot to mention was the, where was it? I had a picture of it on here. Was the Lexington and Ohio Railroad, or the L&O, I think. So let's see what we can find about the L&O Railroad. So the L&O Railroad was a railroad that was the first railroad in the U.S. Commonwealth of Kentucky. Its charter was proposed the establishment of a link between Lexington and the center and Bluegrass region of the river port of Louisville at Falls, Ohio, by the way of Frankfort, state capital. It was never completed. The Panic of 1837 led to its complete collapse. The Commonwealth ceased the railroad and payment of its debts in 1840. All of its right-of-ways of the former L&O were later purchased and utilized for the Louisville and Frankfort, Lexington and Frankfort railroads, which were subsequently merged into the Louisville, Cincinnati, and Lexington Railroad, which that became the Louisville, Nashville at some point. So, I don't really know too much on the L&O, on what it was, but I do know that it was a short line, and yeah, here's a picture of it. I don't exactly know where this is at, but that's a picture of it right there with, if you can see in the very back of this shot, you can see the Illinois Central Golf, GP10, that, well, GP8 is it's a Jeep 8, what it is. What it is, my bad. Sitting there on what appears to be the Norfolk Southern Interchange track. So, yeah. So I believe that does it for this video on short lines of Kentucky and Class 1s in Kentucky. So this is basically railroads of Kentucky. Preservation news. Oh, there was one other thing I was going to mention that I almost forgot to mention. The Kentucky Steam Heritage Corp currently is working on rebuilding CNO 2716, and they have done a stunning job with that locomotive. It is it's getting better by the day on how it looks, but they have done just a very nice job on getting that thing restored. It looks really good. So if you that they also took in nickel plate 587, which it used to be based out of the Indiana Transportation Museum in Noblesville, Indiana, or the INTM. But when that museum was disbanded, basically due to politicians in the city wanting them to basically be kicked out because they were stupid. That locomotive was, I believe, it was bought by the Kentucky Steam Heritage Corp. They also bought what was the number on that locomotive? It was a former Chattanooga, St. Louis, and something, but it's another locomotive that they bought, and it's a former Dixie Line locomotive. And no, not the L&N. It was the other railroad the L&N owned and later merged in the '60s. No, well, yeah, late '50s. They have that thing in the shops, and I believe it's in parts awaiting rebuilding. What else do they have down there? Oh, Norfolk Southern donated one of their SD40-2s, which was a former Norfolk and Western SD40 low hood, which I believe was one of 60 something of those to be built. Its number is 6163, I believe. Let me just make sure I'm right on that. NS 6162. That's it. This thing it's a former Norfolk and Western SD40-2 that was built in the early 80s for Norfolk and Western. So that makes it one of the last SD40-2s to be built. It was also built with It was also built with class lights, as you can see here. And I'm just thankful that one of those got preserved because they really needed to preserve that thing. We needed to see a Norfolk Southern locomotive preserved. So yeah, that's really good news. They also have former CSX. I believe its number is 1200, if I remember right. Am I right? Let's see here. I believe that. Oh, that was not 1200. That was hang on, I'm looking. I'm gonna get this. L&N 5000. That's what I'm looking for. What was its number on CSX? I can't remember. Oh, 1100. So CSX actually donated this is the first ever one of these, L&N SW 1500 number 5000, which was delivered in, here's a model representation of the yellow wing paint scheme. So it was delivered in that paint scheme, and I think the early '70s, I think, is when it was built. It served on the L&M for a while. Here's another picture of it, Family Lines paint, when it was renumbered to, I think, 11 something. It was renumbered till, I think, 11. No, 1100. And so it worked on CSX for a while. Then CSX donated it to the Kentucky Steam Heritage Corp. And it is still there today. It is still in CSX YM3 paint. It's patched, but it's still in YM3 paint. So, yeah, I really look forward to seeing that thing repainted when they eventually get to it, because I know they have a lot on their plate right now. but they are expecting, I believe, to have the 2716 up and running sometime this year. So yeah, that'd be really nice if that was up and running again. I would really like to see that thing restored and get and see it running, because you know that I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna be out documenting this if it's running. I'm not gonna miss it. I'm not gonna miss seeing the steam engine running. So that's all the fun stuff. But yeah, like I said, I'll leave a link to if you would like to join the Kentucky Steam Heritage Corp, or if you just like to donate and help preserving 2716. I know they always need help with money is always much appreciated to them. They're always taking in donations. So if you guys would like to donate to them, you're more than welcome to. If not, that's perfectly fine. Um, but yeah, that probably does it for this video. So this is going to be L&N Productions signing out. But before I go, until we meet again somewhere out there in the high iron, this is L&N Productions out.